it feels like many CPOs haven't really thought about that. They just build as many locations and install as many chargers as possible, but now you have to maintain it, and that becomes an issue.
A person that is charging and is not getting a working station for life, this person will never charge with you again. Only in high exception, if there's anything else, okay, then maybe this person will try again. If you're lucky. But most people just say, okay, you had one chance, you blew it.
Not coming back.
Exactly. And then you lose this customer and all the other customers he talks to as well.
Welcome to the eMobility Marketing Podcast, where we explore how Europe's most innovative brands grow in one of the fastest evolving industries, electric mobility. I'm your host, Theo. Today, we're diving into a topic that sits right at the intersection of business strategy and consumer psychology, the role of pricing in marketing for charge point operators. Pricing is one of the most powerful levers in our industry, even though it's also the least discussed one. That's what we're changing today in this episode. And to unpack it properly, I'm joined by someone who knows more about charging prices than probably anyone else in the industry, Maarten Hachmang, founder of laadpastop10.nl. Maarten, it's great to have you here. And for those who don't know you yet, can you share what made you start Laadpast Top 10 and how that evolved into a European charging price database?
Yes, of course I can. Hello, Theo. Thank you for hosting me. It's an honor. So, let's see. I started in 2016 by comparing EMPs, just on a small blog-based weblog where I wrote a lot about all the differences between all the different EMPs and CPOs and how this pricing stuff works. Little by little, I saw there was a bit of that a lot of people found this really interesting. So I thought, okay, I have to write about this a bit more. And then someone said, okay, why don't you make a list? Just put that list online and you call it a top 10. Which makes it somewhat more exciting. So I thought, okay, well, this is actually a quite good idea. So I just published my Excel sheet to an online web portal, and there it was.
Cool. That's how it starts, right?
Then, after I think 2 or 3 weeks, I got a phone call. 2 or 3 days, I got a phone call from a large energy supplier. And he said, okay, well, Mr. Hachmang, you placed me on place 8, but my proposition is way better. You should put me on place 1. And I said, okay, why? And he said, because we have the best product in the market. And I wasn't really convinced yet, so he invited me to the main office in Amsterdam on the top floor. He said, "Okay, come along," and then we signed some NDAs, and you can see all my contracts and stuff. And that's where I've made my first steps in the professional world of eMobility, where I just suddenly I was in the middle of all this contracting stuff and all the language that was written down between energy suppliers and CPOs and MSPs. And that's where my curiosity really starts. Curious about how this world behind the charging station was actually operating now. That gave me the leverage in between the different CPOs and EMPs to talk to them about their pricing models and their contracts and what they were doing pretty well and where on which parts they could even do a bit better. And that's the way I professionalized the list. And eventually we now have 360 EMPs on it. So it's got a little bit out of hand, out of control.
Well, that's how the best stories start. If you start like this and it kind of evolves on its own, that's then you know you're doing the right thing. And Maarten, before we dive into the details, like what was when you started collecting this pricing information? Like what was the biggest surprise that you found? I can imagine talking to the CPO, that might be surprising as well. Like fully understanding how this works. Like we know there's a lot of technology behind it as well. Like what was the biggest surprise you ran into?
My biggest surprise was that the differences in pricing, like some CPOs were adding a fee per minute or per session. And I was like, okay, this is not transparent at all. And if you're making the wrong choices as a driver, you can easily lose more money than the gas equivalent. And I thought, okay, if this really is the case, then electric driving is in actual use more expensive than driving a gas car, then the transition to electric mobility will never happen.
Yeah, exactly.
So that was my biggest, drijfveer in Netherlands, my biggest subject matter to get me moving in the morning,
Yeah, yeah. And how has that evolved over time? I can imagine when you started at the time, price levels were different. Like how has that evolved recently? If you look at pricing strategies, for example, like it was different a couple of years ago. How can you see that this is evolving in the industry? Like the different pricing models from CPOs, like pricing levels as well.
Well, let's say there's a lot to be learned in different countries as well. I think in the Netherlands, the pricing transparency issues are really on top of mind in the industry. Yeah, we worked on a lot of reports with different organizations on that. So I think pricing transparency is something that actually as a subject is really talked about a lot, which helps. If we keep talking about it, then CPOs and EMPs are changing their strategies as well. And parts of the discussion even reached the European laws in AFIR. So that helps too. And then
Hmm.
you see, yeah, when something is written down in law, then everybody is suddenly making a work of that. And then, yeah, slowly we are evolving into a real transparent system, but we're not there yet.
Yeah. And Maarten, like in most industries, price is a key marketing lever, but in EV charging, like it's often treated as a technical detail. And like you said, there's more attention for pricing these days, but you can still see that CPOs are resistant to use a price as part of their brand story. Why do you think that is? Like, why do they underestimate sort of the power of pricing?
I think there's nothing really to win there, only to lose. So
Okay.
if people don't know anything about the pricing strategy and people say, okay, it's a mess, then it's
Yeah.
just a mess. And when you're the one that is going to talk about it, then you have to explain everything, how the whole system works, because nobody will do that except for a few nerds in the industry like me and you. So that takes a lot of time and effort. And then you're still facing the issue that a lot of people still don't understand, and still at the end of the day they say, okay, it's still a mess. So
Mhm.
what are you actually gaining there? Not much, I think. And that's the primary problem about communicating prices. Well, actually there is a lot of stuff to gain there.
Definitely. Yeah.
And I thought it was interesting in the notes you sent me. Okay, let's talk about that a little bit more, elaborate on that a little bit more.
Hmm.
I think it's really strange that pricing isn't used at all, it seems, to make yourself more in the picture than the other parties in the area or in the arena, I have to say. So yeah, I'm wondering about that myself as well. But I think that's because it's so difficult. Nobody wants to really explain it because yeah, they're not really gaining something out of it. It's just a lose situation for them.
And how do you like? Let's zoom into that part a little bit. Like, how, do you see a solution for this price transparency? Like, there's so many parties involved. I remember like working with CPOs. Like, they always prefer if you would pay like using a direct payment method on the charger directly, because then there's nobody in between. But if there's an MSP in between, they lose complete power over the price. Like, they don't know what the EV driver is actually being charged. Is there a solution there? Like, is there in the future? Can you see that becoming more transparent?
Well, I think that's one side of the story. The other side is that every transaction has to be paid. The credit card companies aren't cheap either, so every transaction have to be paid by the CPO as well. And the transaction to an EMP or an MSP and whatever you prefer is a lot cheaper. And there's another counterpart that most of the time is forgotten. And that's the role the EMP is playing in telling the driver where the charging stations are and bringing actual drivers to your network. And that's something that CPOs are doing a really lousy job at. Most of them. So that's why I think the MSPs are really helpful and useful in this world. For the pricing aspect, and maybe we can talk about that a little bit later on, a bit more in depth. But I think for fuel pricing, for example, every station has different prices as well. And you can say, okay, there are large totems and you can see the price on there. But if the totem is not working, you're not going to not fuel up your car there because pricing varies in a certain range all day or all week or all month. And there all the changes there are minor changes for the whole price you're paying there. So nobody actually cares. And I think this is one of the solutions where eMobility can reach the same goal there if all the pricing is in between, let's say 35 cents and 45 cents the kilowatt hour, then nobody actually cares if it's 37 or 41.
Right.
And I think that's one of my thought experience. Okay, if the pricing is becoming narrower and narrower and all the pricing are kind of the same, then nobody actually cares what the actual rate is. And it makes it a lot more easier if you find some data issue or some error in your pricing, then it's not a big deal for anyone.
Yeah, that would definitely be something to make things more transparent. If you know what the bandwidth is, then yeah, like you said, you don't care that much anymore.
Exactly,
Yeah.
you don't care, which doesn't mean you don't have to tell, right? These are two different things, of course.
Yeah.
Of course, you have to tell it, but at least the expectation management there is not being harmed if you're in
Uh,
within a certain bandwidth.
mhm.
And that's all of the issues are about expectations that were not met at all. Large bills or no bills or late bills or completely different rates, like not 1 cent difference, but like 20 or 30 cents difference, that kind of stuff. And these are all the cases we are working on every day. So if we can just stop these exceptions and make it more, in a certain bandwidth where everybody's feeling comfortable, then you
Yeah.
don't have this expectation management problems.
Exactly. And how would you like, if we zoom in a bit more on the role of price for CPOs, like I can see that with price transparency, it will build trust rather than undermine it, right? And especially when a CPO positions itself clearly, there might be some useful pricing strategies. Like you could be like a more of a premium charging brand. So people know that within that bandwidth, you're not on the lower end, but you might be on the higher end, but we're always getting a consistent and reliable experience. So that could be like a positioning, right? Do you have some examples? Like how do you see that for CPOs? How should they position themselves in terms of price?
Well, of course, you have to make a price that's high enough to maintain your cost level.
Mhm. Yeah,
I don't think it's really fair to the industry to lower your prices while you're eating up your company as well or your
I
investors.
agree.
Everybody understands some companies will do it, but in the end, it's not really sustainable and feasible for the industry. So stop doing that. Just make a normal price where a normal company can make a normal living and pay their workers and stuff like that.
Mm.
So that's the first part. The second part of your question was how CPOs can differentiate, I guess, like a giving a premium experience.
I know there are also some CPOs. Just wanted to give an example that have the mindset, okay, we just install the chargers and that's it. There's no amenities, there's nothing there. While others are more focused on bringing a premium experience with a lot of amenities and stuff. Like, how do you look at that? Like, what kind of options do you see? And would you prefer as an EV driver and with your knowledge about pricing?
It's all about recognition, I suppose. If you know a certain CPO is always add a bunch of amenities to a certain charger, then you recognize this CPO and the amenities with it. And if it's a CPO that sometimes just put one charger in a cornfield, and then other time as a big station, you still don't know if you're chasing for this brand name what you will receive, whether you arrive on the charging station's location. I think that also that has a lot to do with managing expectations of your driver. And think about it in the first place. What's your goal driver? Which drivers do you want to be charging at your stations, and how can you make them do so
Right.
in the real world? Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree that there are some good options for propositions like I said, either more premium or just, charging, you get a reliable experience, but that's it. It's basically like with the gas stations, you have some of these brands as well, right? Like the cheaper brands, you just, there's no station, there's nothing there. It's just a pump and you pay with your bank card and that's it. While others have like premium coffee and whatever you can buy at their stores. So I can also see that there's going to be some differentiation there between CPOs and it's already happening, right? Like look at Fastnet's new station in Belgium with shop and all the amenities there.
That-
It's a nice example of a different positioning compared to other CPOs that just install a charger at an area where you only want to go for charging and then leave as soon as you can.
The funny part is that in the gas world, you see some certain brands that are just focusing on this low budget.
Yeah.
like aura around them.
Yeah.
And in charging world, nobody actually takes this role yet. There are a few fossil fuel companies who are trying to, but even in the fossil fuel companies that are focusing on the low budget experience, they install chargers with real high pricing and a really low amount of amenities. So people are really confused by all these different brands. They cannot really differentiate between the brands. They know one or two with a certain high level of amenities, and they'll actually go looking for it, especially abroad, of course. And for all the other brands, it's just not really clear what audience they are targeting.
Yeah, exactly. There's definitely work to be done, and still a lot of opportunity in the market to position yourself properly and attract the right audiences, I
Yeah,
believe.
yeah, absolutely.
And so, Maarten, let's zoom into the EV driver a bit. Like to me, like the $1 million question for today is also how important is price for EV drivers? Like when they decide where to charge, how important is price there? What's your experience? Like, how do you look at that?
There are five criteria that drivers are thinking about when they go to
Okay.
charge. Number one, absolutely number one by far, location.
Yeah.
You are
Agree.
somewhere in your neighborhood, you need to charge. It doesn't really care about the amenities or the pricing or whatever, it's just location. Number two, won't surprise you, location. Number three, location.
Yeah.
And then number four, pricing, maybe. But I think number four will location will win as well, and then pricing is placed at number
Yeah.
five.
So let's go beyond location. Indeed,
Yeah,
that's the main topic, right? And
exactly.
how about experience? So we have pricing, we have experience, we have the location, amenities, stuff like that. Like if you compare the role of pricing versus the experience, because what we see in a lot of research, what EV drivers tell us is that, like you say, location number one by far, but then the next thing is I want to have a reliable experience. So if
Yeah,
I go to a
reliability.
certain CPO, I want to know that okay, I have a good experience, I get the power that I need and things like that. And then I might look into price. Like how do you look at that? Or is it the other way around in your
No, it's
opinion?
absolutely true. Location and
Okay.
reliability is number two, and
Yeah.
pricing number three. And even people who are adding a lot of weight to the pricing, they are willing to leverage a bit on availability. They
Hmm.
even are willing to wait a bit until the next station is becoming free. But then in the end, after a year driving or something and only looking at the pricing, they see, okay, availability actually wins from
Okay.
pricing.
Yeah.
But that's the more beginners behavior.
Yeah. Yeah.
People think,
Exactly.
oh, this is cheaper there. Okay, I'm going to there. And then after, if you talk to the same person half a year later, they also, okay, in the beginning, I was really looking at only the price, but I learned really fast. I quickly learned that pricing is not the only thing to worry about, especially when you're on holiday with your wife and kids and stuff like that.
Yeah. Exactly. You just want to charge and have a good experience. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then
For
and then
sure.
pricing suddenly isn't that much important anymore. I
Hmm.
don't know. I don't know what triggers the lever in your head that when you walk out the door to enjoy your holiday, then suddenly some magic wizard in your head just pull a switch, and then like every bank account you has, and it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
I don't know how this works. It's really psychological, really interesting topic, I suppose. But that also applies to charging, and that's really fun to see if. And even on car holidays, you would think on a large trip, you're taking a good look at the pricing, but after a few days of road tripping, then nobody cares anymore.
Right. And it's also interesting what you mentioned, Martin, that for new EV drivers, they look at price like in the beginning all the time. And after some time, they understand that there's more to it and it doesn't matter that much anymore, right? I think
Yeah,
that's a really interesting insight.
yeah. I think especially after a year or maybe two,
Hmm.
then I don't know how many people do it, but if you, I think it's really interesting between like the Christmas days and New Year's Eve to just make a wrap up of the year. Okay, how many costs I have made for my kilometers with my car, and then you'll see, I don't know. Sometimes it's €1,000, sometimes it's €800 or 900 euros or whatever. Sometimes in between, and then in the end, you can try as much as you want. For example, on your holiday season road trip, And then in the end, you see it doesn't really matters when you add it all together. Your daily behavior is much more interesting.
Yeah.
What you do. So if people experience that a few times, they just let it go, and
Right.
they know, okay, it's not a big issue anymore if you take a look at the large picture. Of course, there for certain brands, it's like the Shell effect. I don't know if you heard about that in the fossil fuel.
No, can you explain?
The Shell stations have like a bit of image, but a lot of people that Shell stations are really expensive
Mm-hmm.
in terms of fuel prices. But actually, in the last 15 years, Shell isn't that expensive anymore for the fuel prices. In people's head,
Mm-hmm.
they link this Shell brand
Okay.
to
Yeah.
high pricing. And you see this effect occurring in the e-mobility scene as well. So this is a really cautious time for CPOs to
Mm-hmm.
talk about pricing, especially if you know you're not the cheapest one in the market, because this
Exactly.
is where the seeds get planted, in this period of time. So if you, from a marketing perspective, I think it's really interesting to see if you can, if you can plant a seed in all people's minds that your brand has cheap or for good prices for the electricity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's going to help much more than every marketing campaign on on any platform will do.
I agree. There's a lot of positioning work to be done, and I like
Exactly.
that we talked about, like, you can position yourself either more premium or with a cheaper price. And I would say, like, based on our discussion today, if you want to get more new EV drivers to your stations, then price would definitely be a lever. So it would be good to be like on the cheaper end. But I think in the long term, probably like a more dependable and premium experience could also work really well. But people need to know, like, they need to, they're making up their minds, like you said, Maarten. And could you give an
Yeah,
example? Like you mentioned, this is also happening with CPOs. Like, how would that be? Like, which CPO is the shell of the charging industry? Like, could you give an example?
it really depends on which area you're living in. But if you, for example, there is you have some small CPOs in certain areas of the Netherlands that are not cooperating in a tender of the government,
Mm-hmm.
and they are a lot more expensive in this area. And when you charge there 1 or 2 times, and you actually see, okay, here my car charges 30 euros, and on the other station is 20 euros. It's
Mm-hmm.
just this image is being planted, and it will never go away
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
And this is really it's a real risk, I think, for
Yeah.
all brands. And on national level, you see it a bit more, especially when time tariffs are involved and people have some bad experiences. It's a bit of the same discussion about the availability and and if you have one non-reliable experience or that your charger has failed or just
Mm-hmm.
in a big error, there is the same process is happening in your brain. You take the brand of the charger and you link it to a failed charging session.
Yeah.
And then once it's there, you're never going to visit that network again if you can choose. Mm, Disable chargers that are being in error state for a week or something in your street, they are killing your reputation.
Absolutely.
Much more than 1 or 2 cents in tariff change doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
It's a
Exactly.
station that's not reliable, like Aeon, for example, in northern part of Germany. They were being called AOF many
Yeah.
forums about it. And it was just because they were always in error. They just had their technical maintenance not in place.
Mm-hmm.
And there are large waiting times for certain parts of their charges, which practically means a lot of charges are broken and broken for a long time. That's killing for your reputation as a brand.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah, and it's like you said, Martin, like even if you have one bad experience with a CPO, you'll link that to the brand, and that's really damaging the reputation.
Yeah.
So these CPOs, like, they should all have their foundation in order, like have a good working product and a reliable experience, and then you can build on top of that with your pricing, with your positioning, and that's where still a lot of opportunity lies in the market, in my opinion. But the
Yeah.
foundation needs to be there, and if that's not reliable yet, then that's where the work should go.
And of course, and that's maybe one of the start and scale up problems. Not everybody has time to build up this network and to monitoring and do everything to maintain it at a high quality level for the price they're getting paid for that, because they're still growing and they have to be more networks, larger networks, more roaming, stuff like that. And they eventually forget what they were building up in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, I think it's really sad when you see it sometimes that everybody sees what's happening, but nobody's really caring about your main your primary focus anymore. And that's of course not a real good thing.
Is it also, Maarten, part of the like an evolving market? Like for example, in the US, you see the same problem, like a lot of broken chargers that apparently nobody really cares about, or CPOs have a hard time to fix them. And like you said, we've seen the same in Europe. I also remember working with a big CPO like a couple of years ago. They also invested in a certain brand of high power chargers. I think they were the first in Europe to install them, and in the end, they had to replace them with other ones because the brand simply didn't deliver and it was always broken and it really damaged their reputation. Of course, these things happen in a market that's growing, in a young market. You don't know which are the brands that you can really trust and that you can depend on. So can you see
Well,
that
yeah,
as part of the evolving industry?
yeah, it's like an educational curve, of course.
Yeah.
I see a lot of parallels with the IT background. I have 20 years IT background. There are a lot of
Mhm.
parallels there. If you try some new hardware, just buy one or two and just try a bit
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
And these are lessons you will learn in the system administration 101 on your first day of your high school. If
First
you're
that.
doing IT college, you will learn this to always have a testing period, a pilot period. Always make sure that whatever you're doing in your production environment, and that's also the same case for CPOs, make sure you've tested it thoroughly with different cars, different opportunities, like people pushing the red button, the stop button. I don't know, they jam it 10 times a day. What is happening at the charger, and how does your charger cope with that? And is that something this behavior, is it acceptable in your production environment or not?
Mm.
And yeah, and I think there's still a lot of tactical work to be done there, and to keep more yeah, to make the production environment your most precious asset of your company, right? That's,
Mhm.
as a CPO, that's your most precious asset. So why would you suddenly invest or install a lot of charges and don't really know the actual behavior there? It's just an enormously beginner's mistake.
Yeah. So, Maarten, one more question about the EV driver and pricing that I was interested in. Like, you've been driving an EV for a long time as well. And in the beginning, I feel like about 5 years ago or longer, people were much more focused on, well, the technicalities, of course, but also on the price. Like, it feels today, like if you buy or lease an electric vehicle, you don't care too much. Well, you care about the price, but it's not that's super important anymore than it was a couple of years ago. Can you
True.
see that difference as well?
Yeah, it's absolutely true.
Okay.
The price differences 10 years ago, the pricing was about 20% less than the pricing is now.
Yeah.
And the only period in time this was really being focused on was when Putin started invading Ukraine, and the energy pricing were going to the roof, and the
Yeah.
government was doing stuff on taxes as well, and then energy pricing was rising, 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 and then after a few measures from the government, it was falling again, then rising again, and so everybody in 2022, 2023 was really looking at these prices with glasses on, like what the actual is happening here.
Yeah.
And what we see is when the energy market comes more in a easier manner,
Yeah. More stable.
and more stable. And when the energy market stabilized, the energy prices were stabilizing as well. And
Mhm.
in the last 1.5 or maybe 2 years, there haven't actually been really large changes, maybe 1 or 2 cents on average kilowatt hour price in the Netherlands. So if this and this is actually adding up to my theory about if the pricing change, the pricing window is really small and the changes are really small too, then people start focusing on other things. The large problems will just vanish.
Yeah. So it's also part of the evolving market that we're in.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope this is a trend we can see a little bit longer. And every month when I see the numbers every month, because we're working with a lot of EV data as well, we see all the tariffs and the rates that are being paid. And every month I'm a bit relieved when I see the pricing hasn't really changed a lot.
Okay. Yeah.
For example, all of the newsletters of all the AC networks, I follow them all, and
Yeah.
I have some IT that constantly are monitoring all the pricing pages of all the networks, and then I get a ping like ping. Okay, some network in Rotterdam has pulled the pricing up with 1 cent or 2 cents. A few years ago, I would write a large blog post about it, and now it's like, okay, it's only 1 or 2 cents, no problem.
That's not a big difference.
Exactly. Yeah. So the primary focus is not there anymore. Maybe only for non-business drivers, for just
For private
particular
drivers.
private customers, and then only in the first few months, maybe half a
Right.
year, and then the focus is gone, and then everybody knows. Okay, it's around 2.5 times less expensive than gas, and when people know it, okay, that's okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
They get used to it, and then it's just normal behavior.
I think it's a really interesting insight. And it also helps that the energy market is more stable now. So if those prices don't change all the time, then people are just not aware of the pricing anymore, right? You know, it's within a certain bandwidth and you're fine with that. And
Yeah,
then
it's
let's,
something you don't have to think about it anymore.
yeah,
And people
exactly.
don't like to think about stuff they really don't have time to think about.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's
So
true.
if you can leave it just in a large empty corner in your brain, and that's okay.
Yeah. And then forget about it. Yeah.
Exactly, fire and forget.
Yeah. So let's go back to the messier part, like the transparency and the technicalities. Like even today, charging prices can feel unpredictable for drivers, like with the different MSPs, tariffs, roaming fees, like all kinds of fees being introduced. It's not always clear what you'll pay until you get the actual invoice, right? Why is that still so complicated in 2025? Like, is it because of how the ecosystem is built, or is it a lack of alignment between the
No,
different parties?
actually, we're doing quite a good job at it. When you take a look at the advertised price in your charging app or on other places, most of the time it's exactly the same price that's been showing on your invoice.
Okay.
Where it goes wrong is about the expectations. Someone searches for a tariff or a rate in their street at the charges they've been charged before. They look up the tariff. Okay, they see it's, I don't know, it's 30 cents or something. And then when they look it up, they see, okay, this is 30 cents, but the starting rate of their MSP is not included in the 30 cents they see. Or the blocking fees are not showed there, they only see the 30 cents. And then on the invoice, it sometimes is a bit different because not all pricing components are displayed correctly. So the pricing was okay, on the invoice is okay too, but they in the front, they're not telling every component specifically for that charger. And then, then the differences will occur.
So it's also a matter of communicating better. Is that
It's
correct?
almost 90% communication, yeah, in my opinion. And that's one thing we actually did research on in our report, National Pricing Transparency Report from Knowledge Center of Charging Infrastructure. And then we did saw that in 50% of all the charging sessions, the pricing was not equally when they first looked it up, and the price that's being reported on the invoice. And then like large Dutch newspapers said, in half of the cases it's going wrong. The industry was doing quite a good job, but they didn't communicate this exact same
Hmm.
amount. Sometimes just the VAT, for example, was not included in the
Okay.
price.
Yeah.
You could say, okay, that's one mistake, but if you have, we checked 4,000 charging sessions, and if 200 of them does not contain the VAT
Yeah, exactly.
in the first place, then that it's adding up. All these little mistakes are adding up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another example is ad hoc charging. We also have hundreds of ad hoc charging sessions. We tested that, and then people go to a certain charging station and they want to look up the tariff. So they scan this QR code or go to a website where the tariff should be. And then this website gave just an error, just a random like, oopsie, we cannot help you, just try something
Okay.
else.
Yeah.
And then in our modeling, the scores were like 0.
Mhm.
Well, you actually, because of some system that has been broken,
Mhm.
temporarily, or just you don't really know what's going on there. But in our test, it's just failed. And that's why 48% of the ad hoc charging sessions were not, just people couldn't do it.
It was not clear.
Because of and the oopsie and the errors and the failure messages was about 10 to 12%, which I think
Mhm.
was really a lot. You should
Yeah.
imagine that 12% of your supermarkets you can't pay your groceries.
Yeah, exactly.
It
That's
would
really
be
weird.
unimaginable. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we see happening here, and I think that's the root cause, of course, is that a lot of people don't use ad hoc charging, so they don't get tested very often. So if there's some error or something, like a
Yeah.
different QR code that's been, we saw some operators that were moved from one party to another, and then the stickers with the QR codes were not patched equally.
Okay.
Well, new name on it, and the QR code was going to a website. It wasn't even a website anymore. They just got a 404 website not found. These are topics. A few years ago, many CPOs didn't even think about this. That
Yeah.
did
Yeah.
happen one day, but it's just happening right now as we see, and it's all have to do with managing expectations, but also have a good administration of your stations to
Mm.
check if they're online, if the QR codes are still working, if this process is still working. So keep testing, keep maintaining your primary network, your biggest asset, and just take it really seriously, this job.
Absolutely. I also feel like if you have like a 10,000 AC chargers installed, it becomes really hard to maintain that. If you need to change something on the charger, if you want to change a sticker or like a QR code, that's already quite a lot of work to do that. And it feels
Yeah.
like many CPOs haven't really thought about that. They just installed and build as many locations and install as many chargers as possible. But now you have to maintain it, and that becomes an issue.
Yeah.
And then you
Yeah.
need to prevent like all these broken chargers or in the streets. That's something that's, bad on every level.
Maintaining is a complete different job than building.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And the builders are most of the time not the maintainers.
Yeah. Yeah. True.
There, and you see the same issues in IT landscapes all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
I don't know if you haven't seen the picture with the tree with all this text around it, like how the developer has thought it would work and how it actually works,
Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh.
what it's built for, and all stuff like that.
Yeah.
You should look it up. It's a picture of a tree. It's really
Yeah.
fun, and you can
Yeah.
apply it on every IT project, but you can apply it at many CPOs and EMPs as well.
Yeah. True. Yeah. Yeah, it's something that needs quite some improvement, I feel. And you also see that things that might work today might not work again tomorrow. And that's also like it's still like some unreliability there. And it's like you said, Maarten, it's all IT processes behind it. And somehow that seems to be really complicated and easy to break. So I think that's also what many CPOs run into these days.
Well, people are maintaining those things, and people are just lazy. So if you're just lazy, just build something that will fix your lazy work you
Yeah,
don't
true.
want to do. Just automate it, or I don't know, do something about it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
recognize these patterns and recognize, and make yourself aware of it's one a person that is charging and is not getting a working station for life. This person will never charge with you again. Only in high exception, if there's anything else, okay, then maybe this person will try again if you're lucky. But
Yeah, no,
most
that's
people
how it
just say,
works.
okay, you had one chance, you blew it.
Not coming back. Yeah.
Exactly. And then you lose this customer and all the other customers he talks to as well.
Yeah, he's going to
I've
share
been at
that
the station
experience.
of this CPO one day, and it doesn't actually work. I'm never going to visit it again. What do you think it will do in heads of in minds of people? It's really interesting social experiment as well, but also a lot of risk there.
It is. It's like I always say, like you can spend a lot of money in marketing, but if your product is not right, that's not performing well, then fix that first because otherwise you're just throwing away money and your reputation will be damaged anyway if the product is not working.
That's really interesting, and we see a lot. We see some CPOs and MSPs who are actually doing this,
Hmm.
not fixing their product, but throw a bunch of money on marketing.
Yeah.
And then at all reviews and and all comments underneath their marketing tricks, they all get the same stuff. Fix your stuff. This not
Yeah.
going to work and stuff like that.
Fix your product first. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and really sad to see. A lot of people are wasting a lot of money there.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So, Maarten, like if we look at Laadpast's top 10, like what's the role of the website in the Netherlands? Like how do you help in solving that price transparency? Can you explain a little bit on how it works and who is using the website?
Yeah, okay, we have somewhere between the 40 and 80,000 visitors every month right now. It depends a bit on which season you are looking, especially in front of the holidays. People are visiting the website really well. Yeah, we just offer them a library of all cars. You can just compare the differences between them. For example, if they work in France or not,
Hmm.
or if there's a special discount code you can use, or you can request this card for a cheaper rate because doing bulk requests. So we also work with that. So there are a lot of reasons to check out what card you're actually using and to compare it with some new kids on the block. And sometimes there are new parties as well, which are gaining a lot of attention. And then a lot of nerds like us are willing to try this new this new
Okay.
kid on the block to check out whether it's cheaper or easier or more reliable, or I don't know, more features in your app like all push messages of everything what you're doing, or real time kilowatt rates you're seeing how your car is charging. So that's more a bit like the technical stuff if people like it. And then on the other hand, there are some EMPs there which just are saying, okay, every station in Europe has the same price. It gives you a lot of rest in your head. You don't want to be focusing on pricing and charging prices and all that comes along with it. And these are perfect solutions as well, and we display them too, and just tell them about the differences and when it's cheaper or less cheaper. So yeah, we write about it in the newsletter. A newsletter has more than 2,000 subscribers, all growth organically. We didn't ever ask for new subscribers; they just subscribe themselves. We also have very low unsubscriptions because of that, unsubscribers, and that's really interesting as well. People are waiting for a new discount offer in their region, or
Hmm.
willing to read about all all new developments in the EMP and CPO market, and also sometimes a scandal or something that has gone really bad. We're not afraid to write about that too, because we're totally independent, so we don't actually give give anything.
Right. Right. But that's
If,
great. I mean, you're an independent voice in the industry, and that's what's needed,
yeah,
especially around pricing.
yeah.
So,
So we talk about it a lot, and yeah, we do some podcasting recently. Like you, we think it's really interesting to see how different angles from the industry are looking at certain topics as well. And all of the stuff we do it through the vision of the driver.
right.
Because we think the driver should be in charge about what he's paying, how is he charging, he or she, and because the driver has to pay the whole industry. I think they should have a really bigger, louder voice in this whole discussion than they have right now.
Yeah, I agree. And so, Maarten, this is all focused on the EV driver. Is there also value in working with you for CPOs? I can imagine they could do some benchmarking based on your data, things like that. Is that something you do?
One thing we do for CPOs, for example, we have created an BI tool where you can
Okay.
just tap on any electrical station and then see all the pricing of the EMPs, but also if it's public, semi-public, and which region, which tender this station is belonging to, what is actually being paid at the station. We also get some CDRs from the industry as well, to make this circle complete. So it's really useful tool for strategic purposes to see where you can expand your network, which areas you have to put more focus on. If there are white spots in your network, if you what's the coverage of your network, stuff like that.
Hmm.
And certain CPOs and EMPs are using this tool already, and they all say, okay, it's really useful for gaining industry insights on what's happening on the street. Yeah, we use more than 50 sources for building the tool. It's not only the OCPI connections with all the CPOs and sometimes EMPs, but also a lot of different other sources. For example, we take a look at basic administration of home registrations, like land registrations, to determine if some station is public or not.
Mm-hmm.
And then most of the times, for example, if a charger is placed in a certain residential area, then we know, okay, this is most probably a public charging station. And
Mm-hmm.
if we have other sources that are confirming that, then we say, okay, this is highly likely a public charger, and then we flag it as public. So we use all different kind of algorithms and data sources to make the best data as possible. And then since 1st of January 25, we're delivering monthly this data to the Dutch government as well within these, for the Ministry of Infrastructure, and they are using that for all different governmental purposes.
So, Maarten, like if we look at finally at the end of this podcast, if we think about the future of pricing, like let's look ahead a bit. What does the future of pricing look like to you? Like, will we see more transparency? Will there be more AI, like dynamic pricing? How do you look at the future?
Yeah, dynamic pricing is quite an interesting one. Everybody is is waiting desperately for dynamic pricing on public charger networks. The only problem is you make pricing, you add another component of pricing, and we have too many components already. So how does that add up to making pricing more transparent? It's perfectly transparent to give you a large list with a price for every minute, but it's not actually working in real life in daily charging. So I think there is a lot of work to be done as well. You can say, okay, we give you 12 tariffs for the next 12 hours, for example. You can do something like that. But the more you're turning on little knobs for the pricing, the more you break this expectation of prices always in a certain range.
Yeah, exactly.
And when you break that expectation, even if it's a lot lower, then
Mm-hmm.
people they're not going to cope with it anymore. So
Yeah.
they find that they think it's a bit difficult. If
Mm-hmm.
you say, okay, at night is a bit cheaper, that's something you can remember, right? Or
Yeah, exactly. Just
if
keep
you
it
see
simple.
if you see the sun shining, you know it's a bit cheaper than if the sun is not shining,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. But if you are desperately going to work with a lot of different tariffs and from your good intentions, communicating every tariff at every second, then
Yeah.
people they get overwhelmed and you just lose them.
It's going to be complicated, and it also kind of breaks the transparency because you would never know exactly what to expect, right? Now we have a certain bandwidth and okay, this is what I'll pay, that's fine. But if
Yeah,
it changes every minute, then yeah.
exactly. And that's one of the problems we're already facing. I have some complaints in my inbox. For example, somebody looked up the price, it was for like 50 cents, and he got
Hmm.
charging, and then 2 months later, he goes to the same station, doesn't look the price twice, goes to charge their car, and then suddenly it was 70 cent. 70 cent.
Okay.
And so he phoned up his EMP and said, "What's going on there?" And they said, "Yeah, you should check your app every time you go charging." And
Yeah.
that's really nobody's doing that.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
if we talk about managing expectations, in which who's responsible for communicating tariff changes, for example,
Yeah,
it's a
exactly.
question nobody really has a good answer on, but it's really a great question to ask yourself in the
Mm.
industry. Is it always the responsibility of the ones that are starting the charge, or does an EMP or CPO have some responsibility there as well? If you know that somebody's charging there for over 2 years every day, you can just say to him, okay,
Mm.
tomorrow or next week or next month, just take a look at this charger. The rate is going to go up or down or
Yeah.
whatever. So even in daily operating, maintaining your network, I think parties should think about these topics as well. How does
Yeah,
this
absolutely.
work in real life? Why can a rate be changed tomorrow? And why does a CPO or EMP doesn't have to tell it 3 weeks in front? But really, that's really normal in all other industries as well. And even in the utility, in the electricity industry, it's really common. You have a month time ahead to communicate your pricing. For EV charging, it's like nobody has ever set rules for that. So everybody's just doing what they think is best.
Or nothing at all. That's also
Or nothing at
sometimes.
all. Yeah, it's even worse.
Yeah.
If you do something, it's look like you have thought about it a bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're
Exactly.
doing nothing at all, that probably hasn't been put a lot of thoughts in that.
Okay, Maarten. So let's wrap it up. Like we've covered a lot today, and from perception, psychology to transparency and data and all the technicalities. If you had to give one piece of advice to CPOs on how to improve their pricing strategy today, like what would it be?
I think mitigate your extremes. Just throw them away. Maybe make it, I don't know, if you can say, okay, I have 12 different networks, just put it on one pile and
Yeah.
then one price to it. If you can make it more predictable, that's the key to success, I suppose.
Right.
It's not even about the height itself, it's just about being predictable. And then it's the same prediction as people have for the uptime of the stations and the availability of the stations. And it is exactly the same for pricing as well.
Right.
You don't have to be exactly 79 cents for your DC charger. It can be 75 or 82, but be a bit predictable there.
Mhm.
And then people will learn about your stations and your tariffs, and they remember it and they tell it to other people. Okay, I know this and this brand is about this and this price, and there's not real, nothing real fancy happening there.
Yeah.
So be as boring as possible. Maybe it's my
Keep it
best.
simple. Yeah.
Keep it simple and boring, and then people will remember it, and it just go with the flow, and then don't do a lot of crazy stuff, and especially don't do it at the same time.
Yeah. Exactly.
You will lose everybody.
I think that's brilliant advice, Maarten. Thanks for that.
Thank you.
So,
No problem.
yeah, I mean, thanks for joining and for helping us look at pricing not as a number, but also as a communication tool. And yeah, I learned a lot during our conversation today. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you want to mention?
Well, maybe one thing it's bothering me a bit lately. There's a discussion. It started a bit in Germany about angry CPOs that are saying, okay, all these MSPs are bad and they're adding up value and they're eating up our money and stuff like that, which actually isn't true at all.
Mhm.
These EMPs are doing a fantastic job in bringing the drivers to the stations and trying to explain a lot to drivers how charging works and how your charging session is being started and stopped and what the different colors of the lights mean and all that kind of
Mhm.
stuff. So I don't think they get enough credits for the work they actually do for the CPO. So yeah, that's bothers me a bit.
Okay. Yeah.
Come on, work to take the glove together, work
Yeah.
on it together, and just solve the issues you may have there, but don't finger point to each other. Oh, you're bad, or you're just not good in the industry. It doesn't help the industry at all.
I agree. Yeah.
Just get your shit together and try to figure out a solution for both parties that will work and give credit to where credit's due. So that's my my final shout out.
No, it's good that you mentioned this because you're absolutely right. Like the CPOs need MSPs and the other way around, and we're all part of the industry. And I always say this as well, like it's one ecosystem. We all work together, we do our thing, and together we thrive, right? But if we start blaming each other for things, then that doesn't benefit anyone. So I think it's a good
Exactly.
comment.
Exactly. So
Absolutely.
let's try to stay far away from that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Maarten. Well, thanks again for being here. For our listeners, like if you want to explore Maarten's work across mainly the Dutch charging price data, and you have some European data as well, right? You can visit laadpastop10.nl. And Maarten, you mentioned you also have another URL these days.
Yeah, well, if it's just visit my LinkedIn and then you
Okay,
get a lot of the stuff in your timeline as well. Pretty
cool.
visible there.
So I would also highly recommend it. I really like your LinkedIn posts as well on charging data, and it gives some good insights. So I would highly recommend to follow Maarten on LinkedIn, and
Thank you.
you'll find his website and other work as well. So again, Maarten, thanks for being here today. And to our listeners, thanks for tuning in. And as always, if you enjoyed this episode, share it with a colleague in eMobility who cares about making this industry more transparent and customer friendly. I'll see you next time for a new episode of the eMobility Marketing Podcast.